can see we've got 3 seats here. We'll have a session now with 3 speakers, 1, 2, 3. They'll be coming out one after time and then having somewhat of a chit chat. Now we'll be innovating in the chain. And no, it's probably not the chain you're thinking. That's somewhat a different chain. Boys and girls, please welcome from the MIT Media Lab, please welcome on stage Caleb Harper. Welcome on stage, Caleb, and you know the rule. Lovely, my friend, and the stage is yours.
All right. So, I'll wait for the music. So we're after lunch, so I'm not going to ruin your lunch for you today, because I am going to talk about food. But first, I'll start with the Media Lab. If you don't know what the Media Lab is, it's a think tank on MIT campus. There is about 30 labs inside of the Media Lab. We're called the anti-discipline, sometimes the intellectually promiscuous. We generally go into the white space between verticals. So there's biomechatronics, new cars, new toys, and food. So what I focus on is something I call eating digital. In the world today, food crisis means something different to everyone. If I say the word food crisis, what pops into your mind? Is it places without enough food? Places with too much food? Agricultural chemicals creating algae blooms and toxic oceans, not enough water. GMO saved the world. Maybe GMO is the curse of the world. This kind of dialogue around food and climate change is incredibly disempowering. And when you get a glimpse of the world farm, you feel like you have nothing to contribute as an individual. This is the world of food. Those lines are cars, planes, trains, and automobiles. The countries in any color are considered food insecure. The countries in purple are both food insecure and sending food to another country. So now that I've just made you incredibly sad, I'll try to make it simple. What I focus my work on. This apple is food crisis. So I'm sure everybody's eaten an apple in here in the last week or so. How old do you think the average apple is from the date it was picked till the date it got into your mouth? 1 month, 6 months, 14 months. In the United States, the average age of an apple picked into your mouth is 14 months, and we say, how is this possible? It still tastes good. We pick them, we wax them, we put them in cold storage, and we broker them out over that year. The thing that we didn't know was in that time of 14 months, you lose 90% of the antioxidants of that apple. It's mostly now a little ball of sugar and cellulose fiber. So one of the biggest problems in food is that we are so incredibly centralized. The next biggest problem in food. This is a study by the USDA of what Americans would support or oppose in government policy for food. The first one you've heard a lot about. It says a tax on sugared soda. Right? 40% of people would support it, 60% wouldn't. This is a cultural thing. But they threw in a catch question. Down on the list, it says mandatory labels on food containing DNA. Thank God there's some laughter in this audience, because I go in front of some people and they're silent, and 80% of the participants in this survey conducted by the FDA, USDA, would require mandatory label on food containing DNA. All food contains DNA. So it would say organic, gluten-free, non-GMO, and contains DNA. So one of the biggest problems in food is also general ignorance. None of us have been involved with food in a very long time. So the thesis of my work is about platforms. We talk a lot about platforms in this conference, but there is no good platform to empower 7 billion people to contribute to making a change, which is why we just have this culture right now of everybody getting at each other and creating little camps. So these are the questions that I'm asking. What if in the next 30 years on this platform, climate became democratic? This is a worldview of the most productive climates in agriculture, the most productive in green, the least productive in red. This is why Californian farmers are now Mexican farmers. China is now the largest landholder in Brazil. The Middle East sets up farms in Africa. We are slave to climate in agriculture. What would it mean to create a system where each country had its own beneficial climate? Very serious question. Oh, there's sound. There's not supposed to be sound on anything, by the way.
Where's the chocolate?
So what if you could email a tomato? And what I mean is, in this world where we're creating data about everything, have we not gotten to the point where we can create so much biologic data about food that instead of shipping it, we can send it through the air? The last one. What if there were 1 billion more farmers? People talk about how many people are going to be in the world all the time, and it's scary, and 9 billion people, blah, blah, blah. What are they going to do? I was inspired to do this when I went to Japan right after Fukushima. What I saw was a land that was devastated by contamination. It was the breadbasket of Japan. Not only radiation, salt, and soil erosion, but also all the kids had left for Sendai and Tokyo a long time ago. The average age of a global farmer is 65. There is no generation coming after them. No different in the United States, 2% of us. In Africa, 50% of the population being young, 80% of them don't want to be a farmer. Life is hard as a small shareholder farmer. In India, more farmer suicides in the last 3 years than in the previous 10. We are facing a world where we lose so much knowledge if we don't create something that incentivizes 1 billion more farmers. So we need a platform. We've seen the coder movement go forward, creating a lot of open source code, GPL, liberation of the code, maker movement, network movement. What will be the Uber of food? What will take advantage of the networked economy? So we call the next one food movement, or really bio is the new digital. In this revolution, we will need tools. So I'm creating a lot of knowledge in something I call food labs, food operating systems, and a food web. This started very simply 4 years ago. I came home from Japan and I just started hacking. Nebulizers, atomizers, things that you can find in Home Depot and Bed Bath & Beyond to try to grow plants with 2 Dixie cups and a computer. I killed thousands of plants all the time. Eventually, we built a bigger environment. Again, this should not have sound. So in this environment, it's about 60 square feet. There's a lot of cool technology, but really the most important part is once a month we had a harvest inside of the Media Lab. Bright white roots, deep green colors. Is this a glitchy video? Is this a new restaurant? Is this a new grocery store? For one thing, it was the first time that most of the people in the Media Lab ever ripped the roots off of anything. We get our salad in bags. And that's not a bad thing, but when you have a roboticist, data scientist, algorithms expert, all starting to get involved in food, it really changes the basics of the system. We learned something very simple that day. When we would have harvest, we would bring the plants back that nobody ate. When you're a farmer, you don't throw things away. The next day, that food would taste incredibly sweet. What I learned, I did tons of studies. This is just an example of a water study. I did tissue cultures. I cultured all the microbes. I tried to figure out what the heck had happened. Plants under stress create biochemical difference. So we thought we needed to create a lab that we could ship around the world so that people could start analyzing climates. We took this lab idea and we built it on the facade of the Media Lab. There's a farm that has 30 points of sensing per plant. If you know about the genome, we're talking about the phenome, epigenetics, phenotypic expressions. 90% of what we care about in food is not genetically predisposed. It's chemicals. It's color, texture, flavor, morphology, physiology. Inside here, we code climate, which codes expression. We then built an operating system around these plants, and what you're seeing is an example up in the corner. It's that number 72. It's just saying it's running a recipe called resource efficient. We can optimize from all of these points of data: less water, less energy, better taste, whatever it is that you're looking for. All of those variables come together. If you see that blue line, that line is the climate, the digital plant recipe. So imagine that line is Napa Valley. That line is Bordeaux. You're creating the conditions that make it possible to create a 100-point wine anywhere in the world. We then trend it all to a page. We use things like computer vision to see when the plant is growing, to correlate against variables that we're gathering. These are all the plant's friends on the right-hand side. We're starting to experiment with the phenomenological effects of growing plants together. We call that Plant Facebook. Every plant is a user. Every user has defined profiles. We start to get smarter about how we put them together. This is the lab now. Inside of this lab, we're experimenting with things like aeroponics, no standing water, no soil, just mist. We use 90% less water than they use in the field. We grow 5 times faster, and we do it 365 days a year with no environmental contamination. We've been experimenting with lots of diverse seed banks. These tomatoes we grew hadn't been commercially produced in 150 years. You will eat things that you've never had the chance to before because they weren't selected for industrial production. We do a lot with putting minerals in the water, and of course, culturing biomes. What you're seeing right here in the Petri dishes is the culturing of a plant vertically. Lots of microbacteria, lots of things, microbes in the root base. The leaves are basically sterile. So we're learning what is it about that complex world that creates the chemicals that we eat that make us healthier humans. We then do GCMS analysis. We get all the volatile secondary metabolites, which means we get all the flavor, all the nutrition information, and we say, how do these two things map? We also grow human beings with a lot of hair. Yeah, a couple people laughed, but you think I might be doing that, which is a problem. We realized that we needed to build something smaller. They're too expensive, so we launched the food computer. We put it in 10 classrooms across Boston. If you want to be humbled, teach a kid something about science. One of the kids, I said, set it to 65% humidity. I said, what's humidity? I said, it's water and air. He says, there's no water and air, you're an idiot. And I said, all right. Don't believe me. Actually, don't believe me. Actually, written science, screw it anyway. Like, set it to 100. He sets it to 100, it condenses, it creates a fog, it drips, and it rains. And he says, oh, humidity is rain. Why didn't you just tell me that? So they've done all kinds of things. We built them a 3D environment. What you're seeing here is the virtual environment, the sensor data, and actuators. The kid loads a climate recipe that was produced by another kid somewhere else in the world. They actuate that recipe, and they plant a plant. If they run the recipe, they'll get the exact same expressions. But no one wants to run someone's recipe. So you change it. More CO2, more O2, more blue light, more red light. As you're changing, you then harvest the plant, and you've created a derivative recipe. We are building the Wikipedia of climates by using this device. It grows really fast. I'm running out of time. These are not future farmers. We've stopped progressing. We can look at the American Gothic and go a little faster. Hello? Anyone? Bueller? Bueller? Okay, I don't know if they're stopping me. Am I stopped? Oh, there we go. This is a future farmer, blah, blah, blah. This is my team. These are things that exist in the world. This is a lettuce factory from an old floppy disk factory in Japan. There are over 400 hectares of this already on Earth. This one does not grow lettuce. This one is a DARPA facility that grows Ebola vaccine. Plants in specific environments like the Amazon, inoculated with a virus that produces a resistant protein. Everything from pharmaceutical, nutraceutical, cosmetic, to lettuce. This future is uncertain because no one's sharing anything. There is no platform of exchange of knowledge, and it takes every discipline. But in a time when society has decided it wants transparency, when McDonald's markets to you what's in a chicken McNugget now, the most mysterious food item of all time, you know that everything's going towards trust and transparency in food. Open systems, we all know they make a lot of money. Thank you, App Store. So, into the world, food computers. These are the next generation. We've lost one, so food servers and food data centers. Run on, open, oh, there it goes. And I'll just go past this. Run on what we call open phenome. Think open genome, but think for the expression of life and flavor and nutrition. This is not just a fantasy. We are starting to send data rather than sending food. So I'll flip forward. This is our community that we launched only 4 months ago. There are now 150 people in 20 countries on 6 continents building food computers, and then now becoming cores of knowledge and data. The future of food is not about complaining anymore. It's not about raising alarms. The future of food is about networking the next 1 billion farmers to simply ask the question, what if? Thank you.